It's really my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, our really keynote speaker for tonight. I met Richard Jensen this evening, and he signed his book for me. That would be possible for you back there as well. But Richard is an amazing guy, a really NCAA wrestling champion. I told Richard I lettered in wrestling when I was in high school, but not in his weight class. I didn't quite get up there. But he has an amazing story to share with you, a story of perseverance, of recovery, and the importance of supporting youth in their own journey. Let's welcome Richard to share his story with us here.
103-pounder, right? 220. Hey, so and I just want to thank the committee for just seeing the value in my story and making it important and letting me be part of this event tonight. Because I do, yeah. I always feel really blessed when somebody invites me to share my story. Inundated with gratitude all day today. Just kind of prepping, getting really nervous off and on throughout the day, making sure I eat right. And, it's like, hey, I got to deliver this message. And the truth is, I just need to be honest, vulnerable, and just share my story straight from my heart. And that makes everything okay. And I just got to remember that because it kind of helps tone the nerves a little bit, Just come straight from the heart and be transparent. I'm here with my mom, Mary Ann. We get to experience this night together, and she's clean and sober today too, and it's just a blessing to have this evening with her too. My wife was going to come, my wife of over 15 years, sober over 20 years also. But my wife, a few days ago there was a concern with her dad down in Klamath Falls, and so my wife took a trip down to Klamath Falls to check on her dad, and found out he was in a pretty serious situation, and she might have saved his life the other day by getting him to the hospital. And so she's bedside with her dad right where she needs to be right now, and those are the kind of things that we get to do when we're present and available in our loved ones' lives today. This is the same lady that a year ago the medical team wanted us to get hospice ready for her. She got hit with stage 4 cancer a couple years ago, and she had about 8 surgeries throughout the year, and she had every single complication that could ever arise in that process. And she's from that day that they said, hey, you got to start talking about hospice. My wife got up and said, no, we're fighting this thing. We're going to fight this thing together, and we're going to win this battle. And she's gained 30 pounds, and she's on her second round of chemo, and her blood work's coming back good, and my wife is down there with her dad right now, and so, it's just an important moment for us. And so, it's a recovery and addiction is a family affair, guys. It affects the whole family. And, I spent most of my life growing up, the two things I loved in my life growing up was wrestling and automotive. Those were the 2 things that I was just passionate about and I leaned on growing up, and those were the things that helped me navigate school and get through school. Those were the 2 main key elements for me. And after I graduated, I tried drugs for the first time, and I got addicted immediately. It took me down a long 20-year road, in and out of jail and prison, and just trying to navigate life. And I had a really hard time, so I got addicted, and it kind of controlled everything I did. And now it controlled everything, every aspect of my life. Separated me from my family. Took me away from the important things that I really cared about and the things I loved. And drove a wedge between myself and society. Pulled me further and further away from my kids. It put me in this little box, and isolation, in this little box. And, I remember 21 years ago, I was in downtown Portland sitting at the Salvation Army homeless shelter, looking in the mirror trying to figure out what happened in my life. trying to figure out what happened to that last 20 years of my life. Where did it go? How did I get here? And that's where I was because of the choices I made and the road that I chose and the struggles that ensued as an addict. And I remember walking around downtown Portland and picking out tobacco out of the ashtrays to roll a cigarette, and that was the highlight of my day. 34 years old, 21 years ago, October 10th, 2003. I made a decision that day. You know, a few times prior to that, I made a decision to do something different, do something right, and become a man. And I always knew there was something better for me, something greater. I knew that there was something inside of me that was going to make it, but I just didn't know how to do it. And I remember sitting at that homeless shelter, looking in that mirror and making a decision in my life that I was going to figure out how to get there. I didn't know what it was going to look like, but I knew that my kids needed their father. I knew that my family needed me. I knew that I was meant for something bigger and better in my life. 34 years old, with the clothes on my back, trying to figure out what's next. And I made a decision that I was going to get sober, and I was going to try to stay sober. And I knew that that was going to be the key for me to find a better tomorrow. And I didn't know where I was going to be 5, 10, 15, 20 years from there, but I knew that that day in front of me, I wasn't going to get loaded. I set some extremely lofty goals in my life. Goals that people would look at me and go, you can't do that. That hasn't been done. Odds are you'll be back in prison. You'll be back in the streets. You'll be back there. That's the mindset. Once an addict, always an addict, I said, no. I set 5, 10, 15, and 20-year goals in my life at that moment, and I set out to chase those dreams and goals that I'd always thought about for so many years. But I was stuck. Once I got sober and stayed sober for a little while, I was able to stop and look in from the outside with a little more clarity. And I could see the pain and anguish I put my mom through. I could see the struggle and the hurt that my kids had. And I never wanted to feel that guilt again in my life. I never wanted my kids to feel a separation from their father ever again. I wanted them to know that I would be available and present the rest of their lives. I made some mistakes. I'm here and I'm never leaving you again. So I set out some 5, 10, 15, and 20-year goals. I wanted to go out and get back into school and get an education. I wanted to get back on the wrestling mat again. I wanted to be part of the team again. I knew if I was around that team again, it would help me get that structure and accountability and focus and direction in my life. I wanted to find a wonderful, wonderful lady in my life. I wanted to become that father that I always wanted to be. I wanted to show up for my kids. Mind you, this is a guy that owed the IRS $50,000, owed back child support $20,000, 15 driving while suspended. Deadbeat father, multi-state convict felon, an addict at a homeless shelter, setting out to go win the world. Not just win my life back, but go out and become that leader and mentor and role model that people need in their life. Be that hope dealer, which means I needed to get somewhere in my life. 4 years sober, I registered for college. 38 years old, I decided to step back on the mat. 20 years older than the athletes, or the athletes, 10 years older than the coaches. It was a very unique scenario, situation. Who's this weirdo old man coming to the wrestling match? I was trying to win my life back. I got back on the wrestling mat. I graduated from college. I went and competed for 10 years. I became a national champion. A lot of losses along the way, a lot of struggles. It's been a long uphill battle for 21 years. A lot of disappointments, a lot of losses, a lot of setbacks. But I just kept grinding and kept moving, and I kept my sights on bigger things. You know, I run a couple businesses. I speak to tens of thousands of kids all across the country about overcoming adversity and addiction with my organization, Be a Champion of Life Today. You know, I own a house. I've been happily married for 15 years, and we have a wonderful relationship. We understand each other. We're both in sobriety, so we both understand the big goal. And we work with youth all across the country, and these youth programs are extremely important. We need to give them access to these resources, and we need to help them because they're looking for something. And they're going to find it in the wrong place like I did. They're looking for something from us leaders, us mentors, you know. So these programs are extremely important. My story, won a national sports. It was voted one of the greatest comebacks in sports in 2009. It was on ESPN. We won a Prism Award also for something. Honored with the Everyday Hero Award on Channel 2. I got an autobiography, Be a Champion of Life, that's out there, and it's changing people's lives. It really is a recipe for success. It really is helping kids. It's helping people, overcome some things, So for me, it was one of the most important tools and things I could put out into the world, It's one thing to speak it, but if I can share it in writing, and that's what we did. We spent, my wife and I wrote that book. We wrote and published it, and that was a long, long journey to get there. But I would encourage you guys, to think about, supporting these programs because they're life-saving, guys. Some people don't look at it like that, but I look at it like that. There's a bunch of little Rickies out there running around that are looking for something like a program like that. A lot of little Rickies running around looking for a Be a Champion of Life, something to be part of, and that's what we do. We open up a place for kids to be part of something bigger, and it's about, being resilient, staying focused, believing in yourself more than anything else in the world, and never giving up on the big ultimate dream, because if a guy like me can overcome the kind of challenges that we overcame and got where sometimes I think I should have raised the bar a little more, actually. When I'm looking back on it, I think I could have pushed a little harder, and so I think about all those kids out there, and if they could not go down that road I went down and capture that 20 years, and then inspire them to chase their dreams, man, we got a lot of kids that can do some amazing things out there. And I just want to thank everybody that invited me here to be part of this thing. It's a great story. You can find us online. Hopefully you guys will, buy a copy of our autobiography. It helps us in our journey to help more kids. All this stuff helps me. I travel the country every fall. I speak to 40,000 kids every fall around the country. And then during wrestling season, I'm at tournaments all up in the Northwest. And so we're just trying to create a good place for the kids to, be part of something good. And the world needs more of that. So thank you so much. Thank you.